Let us rewind a bit and talk about the Middle Ages. You would not expect medieval Europe, an era of knights, cathedrals, and holy relics, to also be a time of extreme and often bizarre ideas about sex, but it was. Behind castle walls and under church ceilings, people lived by rules and beliefs that today sound more like dark folklore than fact. Some of it was dictated by the church, some by superstition, and a lot of it was about power over bodies, over women, over desire. This was not just about what happened behind closed doors. Sex in the Middle Ages was public, controlled, punished, and very often misunderstood. From strict religious laws that regulated how couples could touch each other, to so-called medical cures for lust, to trials where people were literally examined in court for unnatural acts, this was a world where human intimacy was anything but private. And here's the thing, most of what we know comes straight from official records. Church councils, trial documents, university medical texts, they spell out a world that feels almost too strange to be true. So, in this episode, we are going deep, not in a sensational way, but through the strange lens of actual history. We are looking at the most bizarre sexual customs of the Middle Ages, ones that shaped law, medicine, religion, and even warfare. Because when we understand how sexuality was seen in medieval times, we learn a lot about fear, power, and the human condition. Let us be clear, this is not about judging the past, this is about understanding it. By the time the 12th century rolled around, the Christian church had full authority over people's most personal behavior, not just over whom you could marry, but also when, how, and even where you could have sex. Church officials created entire penitentials' handbooks of sins and punishments. These were not rumors. These were real documents, like the Penitential of Bede or the Canons of Theodore. According to these, if a married couple had sex on a holy day, they had to confess it as a sin. If a man wanted to have sex with his wife from behind, that was considered a grave offense. The same went for doing it in daylight or on a Sunday. Some sources say that certain monasteries kept lists of sexual positions, not to recommend them, but to ban them. And when it came to women, well, the church taught that female pleasure was dangerous. Many sermons warned that women were temptresses, easily swayed by the devil. Others found creative ways around them. It was literally preached from the pulpit. So how did people react? Some followed the rules. Medicine in the Middle Ages was a strange blend of ancient theory, superstition, and religious doctrine. When it came to sex, the mix got even weirder. For a woman to get pregnant, she had to orgasm. So yes, female pleasure was considered medically necessary for conception. According to the ancient Greek physician Galen, who is still widely respected in the Middle Ages, both men and women produced seed during sex. But it gets stranger. Some so-called medical texts suggested that sex could cure melancholia, a type of sadness. Others warned that too much semen in a man's body could lead to illness, and the only cure was release. Herbs like mandrake root or wolfsbane were mixed into potions to seduce or repel lovers. In Germany, an old belief held that placing a knife under the marital bed would protect the couple from demons that attacked during sex. That led to some awkward doctor visits. In some towns, midwives and healers were accused of using magic to manipulate sexual desire. The line between medicine and magic was blurry, and in a world where science was not yet science, people reached for whatever made sense. Let us talk about public shame. In medieval Europe, sexual crimes or even just rumors of them could bring serious punishment. Not just in court, but in the public square. In some French towns, if a husband accused his wife of adultery, and if she was found guilty, she could be paraded through the streets naked, holding a sign confessing her sin. In England, during the 13th century, men caught visiting brothels too often could be forced to wear a hat shaped like male genitals. Yes, really. Then there were the sumptuary laws, rules about what you could wear based on your class or moral status. Prostitutes, for example, were often forced to wear yellow scarves or stripes to mark them publicly. The idea was that you could not hide your sin, even if you were forgiven by a priest. One infamous case comes from Florence, where a man was accused of sleeping with another man's wife. His punishment, he was beaten, but also had his buttocks paraded through the city on a donkey. The symbolism. Everyone was meant to see what happens when desire defies law. The idea was that you could not hide your sin, even if you were forgiven by a priest. One infamous case comes from Florence, where a man was accused of sleeping with another man's wife. His punishment, By the late Middle Ages, Europe was obsessed with witches, and sexuality was at the heart of many accusations. A woman who lived alone owned land, or practiced healing could be seen as dangerous, and was often accused of seducing men through witchcraft, on which trial records mentioned flying ointments. Believed to help witches fly to secret orgies with the devil, these were not just stories. In trials like the ones in Trier or Würzburg in the 15th century, hundreds of women were tortured into confessing to sexual acts with demons. The church believed that these women were not only sinners, but had become literal brides of Satan. Some documents even described the devil's private parts in detail meant to shock and scare readers. It was not just about sex, it was about control, about who could express desire and who would be punished for it. So what can we take from all this? That the Middle Ages were weird? Sure, but more than that, they were human. People then had the same desires, fears, and curiosities as we do now. But they lived in a world that tried to control all of it through religion, punishment, and public shame. When you look at how sex was regulated, feared, or punished, you see power at work. You see what scared people, you see who got to make the rules, and who was crushed by them. And yes, some of it is so strange it sounds like fiction, but it was real, it shaped lives. And sometimes, it even cost people their lives. Thanks for watching. If you made it through this strange tour of medieval sexuality, let me know what surprised you most. History is full of stuff that makes you say, wait, that really happened. And this topic is just one example. For more deep, well-researched stories that mix curiosity, shock, and human history, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell. Got a weird part of history you want us to dig into next? Drop it in the comments. See you in the next one.